Hello and welcome to Indus News Live from Islamabad. I'm Hira Mustafa and these are the headlines. People have been killed after their bus hit a roadside bomb in Afghanistan's southern Zabul province. A provincial governor spokesman said 25 people, including women and children, were injured. No group has so far claimed responsibility for the attack. The attack came hours before the Taliban declared a 3-day ceasefire across Afghanistan to mark this week's Eid al-Fitr holiday. At least 17 more people have been wounded after Israeli forces attacked peaceful Palestinian protesters in East Jerusalem. The occupying forces also clashed with Palestinian worshippers at the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound. Condemning the Israeli violence, UN Chief Antonio Guterres said Tel Aviv must respect the right to freedom of peaceful assembly. Meanwhile, U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan also expressed serious concerns to his Israeli counterpart about violent clashes. Tensions have mounted in the city amid growing anger over the eviction of Palestinians from Jerusalem homes. In the U.S. state of Colorado, at least 7 people have been killed after a gunman opened fire at a birthday party. Police say the suspect killed himself after fatally shooting the victims, including his girlfriend. The incident is the latest in a resurgence of mass shootings in the U.S. and comes a day after 4 people were killed in Baltimore. India has recorded more than 366,000 COVID-19 infections and over 3,700 deaths overnight. In Pakistan, 78 people lost their lives to the virus and over 3,400 tested positive since yesterday. Globally, the virus has claimed nearly 3.3 million lives, with the infections tally approaching 158 million. Well, those were the headlines. News in detail coming after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now the news in detail. 11 people have been killed after their bus hit a roadside bomb in Afghanistan's southern Zabul province. A provincial governor spokesman said 25 people, including women and children, were injured. The Interior Ministry has blamed the Taliban for placing the bomb. Meanwhile, medics say 2 civilians have been killed and 9 were wounded in a roadside blast in the Parwan province. No group has so far claimed responsibility for the attacks. The Taliban have declared a 3-day ceasefire across Afghanistan to mark this week's Eid al-Fitr holiday. However, they have warned against any assault, saying they are ready to defend themselves and their territory. In a tweet, Taliban spokesman Mohammed Naeem said that group's fighters have been instructed to cease all nationwide operations. A spokesman for government's chief negotiator Abdullah said the Afghan government welcomes the announcement. The Taliban statement came just 2 days after bombings outside a school in Kabul killed at least 68 and wounded over 165 others. In East Jerusalem, Israeli forces continue to make a mockery of human rights as they continued violence against peaceful Palestinians, wounding 17 more. The occupying forces also clashed with Palestinian worshippers at the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound. As the tensions boil over forced eviction of Palestinians from their homes and mounting violence by Israel. Leaders around the world have expressed concern and urged restraint. The UN Security Council is set to discuss the worsening situation in the occupied Palestinian territories today. Ahead of the Security Council meet, Secretary General Antonio Guterres said Tel Aviv must respect the right to freedom of peaceful assembly. U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan also expressed serious concerns to his Israeli counterpart about violent clashes.
UNICEF says at least 29 Palestinian children have been wounded and 8 have been arrested in 2 nights of Israeli violence. Tel Aviv has trashed all calls for an end to its recent surge in attacks on Palestinians.
We also firmly reject the pressures not to build in Jerusalem. To my regret, these pressures have been increasing of late.
Meanwhile, Israel's Attorney General has secured a deferment of a court hearing on planned evictions of Palestinians in the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood. The Israeli Supreme Court had been due to hear appeals against the planned evictions of several Palestinian families today.
The Jews did not change their minds. They have the same strategy. They want to evict Palestinians. They are looking for a way to evict Palestinians. The way they had available to them was blocked. Now they are looking for a different way. But we are sitting here in our country, in our land. We will not give up.
In an act of clear incitement, Israelis will march later tonight through different neighborhoods of Jerusalem, including the Muslim quarters, under police protection. Experts have warned the march would lead to an escalation of hostilities and insisted that the march be cancelled.
India has recorded more than 366,000 COVID-19 infections and over 3,700 deaths overnight.
The COVID-19 crisis in India is worsening, with infection rates in some parts of the country are soaring. The positivity rate in the coastal state of Goa has surged to more than 50%. Experts have warned that the situation in neighboring Nepal is set on the same track, with infection rates running high. Brazil recorded nearly 39,000 more confirmed cases in the past 24 hours and over 1,000 fatalities from COVID-19. Meanwhile, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is set to reveal plans to lift parts of the COVID-19 lockdown today. Qatar also decided to gradually lifting coronavirus-related measures in 4 phases, starting the first phase on May 28. Globally, the virus has claimed nearly 3.3 million lives, with the infections tally approaching 158 million.
In Pakistan, 78 more have died from COVID-19 overnight as the death count approaches 19,000. The Health Ministry said more than 3,400 people contracted the virus over the past 24 hours. It said the countrywide tally of confirmed cases has crossed 861,000, out of which over 762,000 patients have recovered. The number of active cases has declined to 80,000, with over 4,900 critical. According to the Health Ministry, the positivity rate of new cases is 9.12%. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan has called for a concerted response from the Organization of Islamic Cooperation to tackle rising Islamophobia. He said this during a meeting with OIC Secretary General Yusuf bin Ahmed Al Uthaymin in Makkah. The Prime Minister also urged the world to show a common resolve against intolerance and incitement of violence on the basis of religion. He condemned the Israeli attack on worshippers at Al-Aqsa Mosque and called for a rightful role of the OIC in dealing with the situation. The Prime Minister's office said the OIC Secretary General shared information with Khan on his activities in support of the Kashmir dispute. In Pakistan, 3 soldiers have been martyred and 5 others wounded in 2 separate terrorist attacks on security forces in Balochistan. In a statement, the military's media wing said terrorists attacked soldiers in Quetta in one of the attacks, while a patrolling party was ambushed in the second attack in Turbat near the border with Iran. In the U.S. state of Colorado, at least 7 people have been killed after a gunman opened fire at a birthday party. Police say the shooting happened just after midnight in a mobile home park on the east side of Colorado Springs. In a statement, the police said the suspect killed himself after fatally shooting the victims, including his girlfriend. But he did not fire on traumatized children who were present at the occasion. The police say the motive behind the shooting is yet to be determined. The incident is the latest in a resurgence of mass shootings in the U.S. and comes a day after 4 people were killed in Baltimore. In Maldives, authorities say they have arrested a key suspect in a blast that targeted the country's former president Mohammed Nasheed. Thursday's blast outside Nasheed's house had left him critically wounded in the capital mail. In a tweet, police said the 3 of the 4 suspects involved in the explosion are in custody. They added that the 4th suspect is still at large. Officials blamed extremists for the attack, but investigators are not sure which group was behind the incident. The ex-president underwent 16 hours of surgery to remove shrapnel from his body. In Myanmar, despite continuing violence against anti-coup protests, activists have yet again taken to the streets against the military rulers. In Davi, residents organized a white shirt campaign in protest at the military regime. Meanwhile, another Myanmar poet, Khe, whose works declared resistant to the ruling junta, has died in army detention. His family said he was severely tortured and his body returned with the organs removed. UN Rapporteur Dom Andrews condemned the incident and expressed solidarity with the Burmese under siege. The Assistance Association for Political Prisoner Activists group says the military has killed over 780 civilians since the February 1st coup. The U.S. government has issued an emergency legislation after the country's largest pipeline was hit by a ransomware cyber attack. The pipeline carrying 45% of East Coast diesel supply was completely knocked off and still remained largely shut down. The Department of Transportation issued a temporary waiver enabling fuel to be transported by road. A total of 18 states have been granted the waiver for transportation of gasoline, diesel, jet fuel and other petroleum products. However, it is not enough to match the pipeline's capacity. The hackers allegedly took almost 100 GB of data hostage and are demanding a ransom. A small minke whale has been freed after it became stranded along the River Thames in southwest London. Hundreds gathered at Richmond Lock and Weir as the whale became stuck on the lock's boat rollers. It was initially hosed down by a man at the river's edge. Rescuers from the Royal National Lifeboat Institution later arrived on the scene to save the animal. It was successfully moved to a safer location nearly 4 hours later. In France, thousands of protesters took to the streets of Paris to urge the government to do more to tackle the climate emergency. Chanting slogans, protesters said President Emmanuel Macron continues to feed a system which is profitable. Last week, environmentalists slammed the French Assembly's climate law, describing it as a failure. France aims to cut greenhouse emissions by 40% by 2030, but the environmental activists say it is dragging its feet. In a landmark ruling in February, a court had ruled that France needs to step up to combat climate change. More news stories coming up after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Stocks in Asia Pacific are trading mixed as investors are practicing caution after weaker than expected U.S. jobs reports in the month of April. Japan's Nikkei 225 has gained over 0.5%. Sales Kospi jumped over 1.5%, while the ASX 200 in Australia has also added more than 1%. However, shares in mainland China and Hong Kong have dipped marginally. Now it's time to have a look at the weather update across the globe. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.